2-ish weeks ago, I had a panic attack. It came out of nowhere, which I say that knowing that's not how panic attacks work. They usually, there's usually a very good reason they're coming up. They're usually, in my case, has been a repression of something that is now erupting and exploding. And I'm sharing this with you now because I feel this could be a common thing for we as writers when we commit to write our book and we start birthing the book. And this video is going to be way too long for Reels, so on Instagram. So I'm going to try to find a way to chop it up and put it on Instagram, so it can serve people there too. Because I don't think I'm alone in what I experienced in this panic attack. So as you might have heard me talking about on and on and on, my daughter and I are in a musical together Sunday in the Park with George. First weekend in April here in Winfield, Kansas at Southwestern. So excited about it. I'm like thinking, how much of this do I tell? Do I just go all in, raw, visceral, tell you the whole thing? And I think I'm going to tell you the whole thing of my panic attack. Even though there's a conscious part of me right now that is overanalyzing this whole video that I'm making and telling me not to be a drama queen and telling me no one cares about this, telling me how ridiculous my emotions were, how ridiculous this thing was. So, when you audition for a musical, you put down on the sheet, if the director asks you, like, what's your vocal range? I know there's a part of me that's like, this is so ridiculous, but I'm going to share with you. We're going to go all in. You have to put what range you sing. And for women, that can be, I am probably going to offend real musicians out there, but a contralto sings really low. And then there's a mezzo soprano in the middle. Then there's a soprano. And, in our first rehearsal, I'm like trying, so sorry. I'm like editing in my head instead of just telling you what I want to tell you. At our first rehearsal, I showed up and I saw that I had been cast as a soprano, which I have been since I was 11. I was a contralto. So basically they needed, these directors that I love so much, they needed a soprano, they needed a flute, and they got a cello in me if we're going off sound and timbre and whatever. And so, like all panic attacks, what really happened had nothing to do with Sunday in the Park with George or this moment that I experienced. So I'm sitting there on the stage rehearsing, looking at my sheet music for the first time and seeing how flippin' high my notes go off the staff. And I'm sitting there with my daughter, so I'm in mom mode. She's on cloud 9. She's so very, very excited about this musical. I am too, feeling the high vibes, creative mojo flowing, surrounded by amazing musicians, loving all of it. Love it, love it, love it. Then I saw how high these notes go, and then I was asked to sing, and my heart sped up so fast. Almost out of my chest. And you know me. You've seen me on social media. You've seen me in real life. I love the limelight. Love it. Love all the attention. Love to be on stage. Love to entertain, encourage, catalyze, action, coach, all the things. I love attention because when the attention's on me and the attention's on helping and serving other people toward writing their book or whatever it is I'm drawing attention to. So I love it. But in this moment, my heart sped up. The room started to spin a little bit. I started to kind of struggle to breathe. And so I noticed it and I started breathing. I started consciously breathing. And then, you probably know where this is going. In that moment, it was no longer 2023. In that moment, it was 2000. Okay, I paused because I paused because my child entered the room. And she could definitely hear this. She probably will someday. In that moment, it was no longer 2023. I was no longer in Winfield, Kansas. I was no longer an almost 40-year-old woman. 36, close enough. I was an eighth grader. And an insanely pivotal moment happened in my life when I was an eighth grader. And so, as I shared with you, I had been labeled a contralto since I was 11. Like, lived on the stage, did community theater from age 6 to 8th grade until this moment that I'm going to tell you about. And as you can tell right now, my 8th grade self has a lot to say and a lot of feelings. So I'm like debating, do I want to pause this? Do I want to stop this? I'm going to keep going. So, I'm probably going to film this thing. I'm going to keep it on my phone for like a week and then be like, I'll share this now. Okay. So labeled a contralto my whole life. And, no matter how hard I tried, I could never be a soprano. And you're like, oh my God, when is this woman going to get to the point? Here's the point. So regardless, whether it's big T trauma or little T trauma, there were things that happened in my life as a child that made me feel very alone, unlovable, unseen, not seen, not heard, not well taken care of. But then I realized at an early age that if I performed well, I got love, I got applause. I met so many artists out there and performers are potential, and other Enneagram 3s are relating to me right now. And so at an early age, I fell in love with the stage and I fell in love with the applause. I really need to keep this under 10 minutes. We're already at 7 minutes. Wrap it up, Meg. I fell in love with the applause. And I fell in love with it because I felt love from it. Like, okay, this is how I get love. I sing, I talk on stage, I perform. And but then in 8th grade, after working so hard trying to become a soprano, which many would debate, but from my experience, I couldn't stretch my range that high. And so in this 8th grade musical I did, that was also a Sondheim musical, which is such divine fuckery. The last one I did, I was as cast as an 8th grader. I was told, like, what I remember from the experience was my emotional experience of the situation was that, unlike other things that I could do in my life, that I could work hard to earn love and earn applause and earn respect. I could just work harder at it. I could figure it out and I could earn love. But in this moment as an 8th grader, I realized, like, I could no longer do musicals. I could no longer earn love in this way. No matter how hard I worked, I would never be a soprano. I would never earn love. I thought I moved this already. And so in that moment, after we were cast as 8th graders in this community show, I went to the bathroom and I locked the door and my heart raced and I cried. And I just sat there in the bathroom and basically had a panic attack, sitting in all these ruminating thoughts of, I'm not lovable if I'm not earning applause. No matter how hard I work, that was the only thing, like, stretching my range was the only thing that I had yet to experience as a 14-year-old that I couldn't earn, that I couldn't, sorry, I said that wrong, that I couldn't work hard enough for. No matter how hard I worked, I couldn't have it. I'm beating a dead horse. I've already said that. And so in that moment at 8th grade, I I adopted the subconscious story of I need to stop doing musicals. I had started preaching around that same time with my missionary grandparents, and I got applause that way. And so then from the age of 13 to 33, worked in a church and preached and sung in church. And there was this subconscious story that wired in my, through my neurological pathways of, I can't do theater. I'm not good enough to sing in musicals. Musicals are only for sopranos. And my voice only belongs in the church. And I can earn, if I want to be lovable, I need to sing church music, and I need to preach and get applause that way. So all of that craziness happened, and in 8th grade, in that moment, and I gave up. I gave up that part of my life, that performing part, and became addicted to the church and church ministry, which you can read about in my second book. So fast forward back to 2023. I come home from rehearsal. I thankfully didn't cry. I mean, I could have cried, but I kept it together in front of everybody in the cast. And on the way home, I started tearing up, and my daughter was in the back seat, and I didn't tell her why I was tearing up. Then as soon as I got home, I went into my office, and I just tears, crying. And I have here written down the notes, these steps that I took in this moment. It was so overwhelming, the emotions in that moment. So the next morning, I thought, okay, I cried. I know what that was about. That was about my 8th grade experience when I gave up theater forever and musicals, and decided that being in ministry was the only way I would earn love. And then I got up in the morning, like I always do, to meditate, to journal, to be in a sacred text of some kind, and went to meditate, started crying again. And then I checked in, and I realized there are some things that 14-year-old Meg wants to say to me right now. I, as 36-year-old Meg, need to make some time to listen to her. So I cried, because emotions are energy in motion. And so I noticed my feelings. I made space for them. This feels kind of weird, making this into a teaching moment when it really is just a sharing moment. So, but I did want to share with you. Anyway, I'll just keep sharing. So emotions are energy in motion. So I listened to them. I noticed them. I listened to them. And then I made space for them to get it all out, to really have them come up. You might have heard the saying that an angry dog, this makes no sense, but it makes all the sense in the world. It's so ridiculous, though. An angry dog can't stay locked in the basement forever, right? So our repressed feelings, they're eventually going to come out some way. And so I let myself cry, and I realized that it was 14-year-old Meg crying. And then I got out my pen, and I'm like, okay, I made space for you. I'm going to listen to you fully. So tell me all the stories that are running right now. And I basically, in my journal, listened to 14-year-old Meg, wrote what she had to say. And she was very vocal. Sometimes younger versions of ourselves, when we do inner child work, they're more timid. They're more scared to speak. And so sometimes using your non-dominant hand, I'm holding up my left hand for that reason, your non-dominant hand can help turn off the other parts of your brain that would be analyzing and taking control over and judging you for the situation, and can help the inner child find his or her or their voice. Mine was very vocal, and she told me all the things that I shared with you, that I in my panic attack when I was 14, I had lost the main way that I was earning love. And I was feeling it all over again. And in a sense. And I had I talked to her in my journal, going back and forth, 36-year-old Meg, 14-year-old Meg. listening to how alone she felt and how unlovable she felt. And then I checked in if that story was true today. Is that story true today? And I reminded her, I spoke to her. Sometimes when I have triggering moments, and it's my much younger self that comes to me, I can like set her on my lap, like if it's 4-year-old Meg, and I can rub her back like I do my daughters, or stroke her hair behind her ear and kiss her forehead. But 14-year-old Meg, that would be awkward to put her on my lap. So instead, what I did was I hugged her and told her that she was loved. Loved beyond all belief. Told her that while her talents bring her pleasure and joy and serve other people, even if she didn't have a single talent in the world, even if no one was there to applause, she was still never alone and always loved beyond all belief, beyond all articulation. And I hugged her in my mind and my imagination, and I wrote these things out to her, and I held space for her to cry. And then I checked in with, is this story, is the story that wired its way into my way of being when I was 14 true today? And is it serving me in where I want to go and where I desire and who I desire to be and who I desire to become? And the answer is no. While that was, God used everything for good in what I experienced when I was 14, and while I was doing the best that I could with the information I had at the time, and while I was acting in a way that helped me survive, helped me earn love in the relational systems of that time, it's not a true story anymore. What's true about me now in this potentially ridiculous 20-minute video. I'm just kidding. It's not ridiculous. It's very, 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 very real, and it matters, especially when you go to do a creative endeavor and these old stories from the past pop up and try to tell you something tell you you can't be creative in this way with your book because of a past story. And so I can do theater. I can sing in a musical, even though I'm not a soprano. My voice is good and needed outside of the church. And then I took actions with the directors and created a solution to, like, I want you guys to have the best of me. This is what I'm capable of. I did not go to the directors in the state that you just experienced. That was all in the privacy of my own home until I decided to share it on social media. and we created a solution of switching my parts, and they totally understood, and it was kind of a mistake, and that there was some apology energy in that. And so that was all good. But so the 7 steps that I took here that I wanted to share with you that can help you as you go to write your book, and if you have a similar situation pop up like I did. I noticed my feelings. I made space for them. For emotions are energy in motion. We need to make space for them to come up and out, to fully feel them, to transmute them, however you want to label that. I listened fully to the stories they told me through a journal. I checked in. Is that story true today? Is it serving me to where I want to go and how I want to grow? And that story was no longer serving me, and I was ready to free myself of it, to reframe it, if you will. Still checking in and breathing deep and loving 14-year-old Meg because she's still a part of me. And there have been times since that moment 2 weeks ago, as you've noticed, that's a deep wound that I get to heal. There will be times that I'll breathe and remind myself of the story that's true today about me and my talents and love. And then I took actions with others. So I made demands with what I needed for those around me and my environment. So this was a very vulnerable video. By the time you're watching this, it's probably been on my phone, like I said, for a week, me debating, do I want to share this or not? So I guess my final thing to say, you can tie braces on. My final thing to say before I hop on a client call is, pardon my dogs. The book within you, the book that's talking to you, when it is being birthed and released, like all art that we create, anything that we create as co-creators, when we birth that book, we also birth a breakthrough that's going to be integrated in every part of your life. Every single part of your life changes when you commit to co-creating a book with the divine, with God. So prepare yourself for moments like this, and I hope that these 7 tips that I shared with you, I hope that they serve you as you're on your book writing journey, and know that I'm always here to help you birth and release your book. So thank you for letting me be totally vulnerable with you in this video.